The November 18, 2024 Finance and Audit Committee meeting. I'm Councilmember Gil Schussler, and I'm the Finance and Audit Committee Chair. The meeting format is hybrid. Quorum will be physically present at the HART Administrative Offices, 1201 East 7th Avenue, Florida Conference Room, and the rest of the board members will be participating via communication media technology. Please look at the screen of your devices. An image of the flag is displayed. Please join me, if you can, in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can we have roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Committee Member Hartfield.
Present.
Committee Member King.
Present.
Committee Member Knight. Committee Chair Schisler.
Here.
Committee Member Williams.
Present.
You do have a quorum, sir.
Thank you very much. Mr. Knight, I believe, is on his way, so he'll join us in mid-meeting. We will now accept public comment. It doesn't appear to be signed up to speak. Is there anyone present in the audience this morning for public comment? Thank you very much. Appearing to be none. This concludes the public input section of the meeting. In your packet are the minutes from the October 21st, 2024 Finance and Audit Committee meeting. If everybody's had a chance to review that, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Committee action items with presentation. Next on the agenda is a committee action item with the presentation for further review by the committee for recommendations on approval by the full board of directors. Item 4A is to develop a recommendation to the HART Board of Directors to identify solutions to the fiscal 2025 THS, Tampa Historic Streetcar, budget shortfall. Mr. Drainville, you're recognized to provide an overview of this item and to introduce the presentation.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning again, committee members. So as most everybody knows, HART did complete a cost allocation analysis for the TECO streetcar that's consistent with the amended operators agreement for the TECO streetcar line between THS Incorporated and HART, as recommended in the Florida Department of Transportation, or FDOT, operational and governance study, which included administrative costs incurred by HART as the operator of the streetcar system. The THS Board of Directors adopted an FY25 budget with a shortfall. Mr. Justin Willits, Director of Planning and Schedule, is going to present to us today, so you are recognized.
Good morning. The clicker wasn't cooperating. I prefer to stand anyway. Justin Willits, Director of Planning and Scheduling, and I'll take you through the few slides we have on this item. A little more background in addition to the CEO. In October of 2018, HART discontinued fares on the TECO streetcar. Several FDOT grants and matching contributions from the City of Tampa and the Tampa Downtown Partnership provided free fares with increased frequency and expanded service hours. Those grants expired at the end of fiscal 24, and as stated in the intro, December 23, the FDOT Governance and Operational Management Analysis recommended those cost allocation plans. Staff worked to complete an internal cost allocation plan and presented it to the City of Tampa staff in April, and the City of Tampa asked for us to have an independent review of that cost allocation plan. You can see the bullet below. In FY22, according to the NTD, our administrative reported cost was $180,000. The FY 2025 adjusted administrative costs after the third-party consultant review was reduced from 1.475 roughly to $1.384 million. In August of 2024, the THS approved the fiscal 25 budget, which included a shortfall of those administrative costs that were charged to the streetcar. Just a little background here to kind of demonstrate the basically kind of a smell test of where we land in the country as it comes to streetcar operations. We've put together a peer review of the cost per revenue hour of streetcar service compared to bus service. So the graph below displays the data above. The blue bars are the streetcar cost per revenue hour across all of these different agencies. and the orange is the bus cost per revenue hour. As you can see, in fiscal year '22, HART was the only transit agency among peers and nationwide that reported a lower cost per hour for streetcar as it compares to bus. And I do want to give a shout out to Brian Allen and his team on streetcar. They've done an amazing job keeping costs very, very low. So I don't want to give them credit for the hard work they do. I know he's tired of dealing with me on this. So here is another way to look at the administrative costs as a percentage of the overall operating budget. And you can kind of refer back to the last committee presentation on those reported administrative costs across the whole agency. Well, here is where we've been reporting the administrative costs. As of 2022, the administrative costs were 6.5% of the total operating expenses for THS. As compared to our peers, they were all in the 20 to 30% range, so we were far below. So now let's compare that to our budgeted administrative costs based on the overhead and the independent cost allocation that we did. That brings our administrative costs up to on par with these other agencies as of FY22, the most recently available data at the time of the creation of this presentation. So this tells us we are right in line with peers nationally for the amount of time and effort we're putting into the streetcar service as an agency. And this is the approved budget for THS showing the shortfall below, and that is the 1.475 number that has been revised to 1.384. So we are looking for guidance from this committee to take to the board about how to address the shortfall, and I'm happy to take any questions. I have some staff here that's done some outreach, my planning staff who's done a lot of the analysis, and we can answer any variety of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Do we have any questions for staff at this point before we begin discussions? Director, Mr. Hartfield.
Thank you, Justin. Did we have a shortfall last year? A budget shortfall?
So we did not have a shortfall.
We did not.
And the reason, so just to give a little bit of background of how, about the shortfall, we were commended from FDOT to do, we did the operations analysis, and one of the recommendations to do a cost allocation. I asked staff to do the streetcar first. A conversation came up during one of the budget meetings during the HART board, and I was directly asked, what does it cost HART to run the streetcar? I didn't have an answer for that. So I said, let's do the cost allocation. Knowing in the industry that we were substantially cheaper to run the streetcar than most agencies, I was intrigued to find out what does it actually cost us. And so really since the time that the streetcar has been HART's been operating it, HART's assumed all the indirect costs year after year after year. So of course, as inflation grows, the costs are gonna multiply. So when we finished the cost, we did an internal cost allocation that came out to 1.75. We've approached the city. I had met with the mayor, and we did a presentation on, on the indirect costs. And then in those conversations, they recommended we do an independent cost allocation. So we had a contractor on contract. They came in and did an independent cost allocation. And I know our finance staff has met with the city's finance staff to go over that cost allocation. And that's where, right now, it's with the city, and they're going over that cost allocation. So we're in constant communications on how, just figure out where the shortfall is. But to your question, we didn't have a shortfall because no one really looked really into the indirect costs of what it was costing HART to fund the streetcar.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? I do have a comment. I think everybody should recognize, and correct me if I'm wrong, the overall HART pot of spending hasn't changed. It's just the allocation of the particulars within the different subunits, if you will, or operational areas has been changed based upon recommendations by FDOT to better allocate the expenditures through there so that the revenue sources can be better matched with the spending. So HART didn't spend, so a budget shortfall initially denotes, well, we overspent. Well, that's not the case in this particular situation. We're allocating the costs to the specific revenue streams to be more accurate, if you will, and to the funding. And it creates a problem with the streetcar system. And in the past, between the city and FDOT with their grant programs, it was just kind of there. So this gives a better allocation of those expenses. So to our issue is, what are our options that we can make a recommendation to the board? Unless staff wants to make any recommendation on the options, I break it down to two in particular, one being an increase in fares to the streetcars, or just initiating a fare recovery on the streetcars, which heretofore has been free and fully absorbed by the city / HART. And then second is the city pony up the additional 1.3 or almost 1.4 million. I'm not sure where do we stand with either one of those options as far as public perception and/or city response.
So I can say right now, we're still in talks with the city to, we haven't had, it hasn't been negative, but we're still in talks with the city about funding that. I know our staff has come up with different scenarios. If we had to reinstate the fare, we did cost equity analysis, elasticity test analysis, and we have that information. I don't know if Justin can show the different scenarios, different fare scenarios, what the service would look like, and then if there would be still a remaining shortfall if we did that, so.
How high would the fares have to go in order to cover the 1.4 million?
So if you can look at the slide up above, there is not a scenario where we can raise the fare high enough to recover all of the costs because the ridership drops proportionately, and that's the whole, based on the elasticity analysis we've done. So we did that internally too, and we also had a consultant support to try to figure out, when you're going from zero to a fare, it's not so much elasticity as it is a very interesting.
Did I steal your thunder on your next step of your presentation?
No, you're good. I think that that's consistent with the direction that we need.
Okay.
But here are the first scenarios. We can tease these out a little bit differently. But what it does is the reimplementation of a fare will reduce the total amount dependent upon what that fare is and the level of service that accompanies it, okay? So we could reduce service significantly and add a fare, and that would probably minimize the shortfall. And that is scenario C shown here. So if you implemented a $2.50 fare, which is the old fare before it went fare-free, and reduced the level of service, that you would still require an additional $350,000. If you, and I'm going to try not to get too in the weeds here, but if you look at the average fare column on this table, we only recover a percentage of the actual fare that we charge for someone to get on the bus or the streetcar. And because of fare capping, people get more than one ride out of their dollar, right? More or less. So that is why the higher the fare will reduce the ridership more than a lower fare, but it's going to generate a little more revenue. So for the purposes of your recommendation would be to hopefully bring more of these scenarios and to the board to consider, independent any action or resolution from the city in the meantime. But it will be a combination of a service reduction and a fare reimplementation to recover as much of our costs as possible. We would hope that the average fare per boarding would be slightly more than what we've shown here. This is conservative, but it has to be, because as I said, it is not a true elasticity analysis, because going from zero to any fare is different than going from a $2 fare to $2.50. Hope that makes some sense.
Well, trying to analyze the different things that are going to happen, it'd be like trying to get an octopus to play a bagpipe, because it's just everything, this changes, that changes, everything changes all over the place. So, and then it's all moot if the city steps up, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay. Mr. King?
Well, alternatively, thank you, Chair. Alternatively, what about seeking an alternate funding source for the additional cost? I'm thinking there's some tourism value in having the streetcar performing the function that it serves, and that there may be other ways of financing the additional costs, perhaps through the tourism board.
I think that that is a great idea. There are potential funding mechanisms. The issue is that the THS, the responsibility to fund THS is from the city. So HART advocating for that has been a little bit of a historic gray area. But there are multiple options. The city has a streetcar special assessment. The Port of Tampa Bay used to pay into that assessment and does not anymore. The tourism tax could be a reasonable place to look as well, but at this point, it's just about addressing the financial need. How it happens is kind of we're independent of that.
Does TICO not pay into this?
They,
TICO, I guess 25 years ago, contributed, I think, $1 million in increments, and once that was finished, they have the naming rights in perpetuity. And that's something I did raise, so I guess there's conversations about THS talking to TICO and what they can contribute. But again, as Justin stated, HART is the operator, and THS works with the city to fund it. Any funds that come through, HART doesn't profit from that. It goes right back into the expenses of the streetcar. So we have been, trying to get the message out and help, but again, HART is the operator of the streetcar.
Well, I understood, but I mean, basically, there's no value in operating the streetcar other than for the sake of tourism and for the sake of promoting the connection between Channelside and Ybor City, because those are the two ends of the track, so to speak. And it seems like there's a value for it there, but getting additional resources to fund it, if we want to continue it, would have to come from somewhere, if not the city.
That is correct. And I'm actually talking with President English this week on any progress that might have been made through THS. So.
Mr. Herfield?
Ms. Kirk, I see you on this morning. The streetcars, where do they exist, or where do they land on our balance sheets and financial reports? Who owns the streetcars?
They're assets that we purchased with federal dollars.
Who owns them?
We do.
We do. We have title to them and federal interest in them.
Okay. Operationally, is there an agreement with the city or TICO to?
There is multiple agreements. There's a tri-party agreement between HART, the city, and THS. There's an operator's agreement. So there's multiple agreements that have been in place for many years. We just revised the operator's agreement about 1.5 years ago.
Okay.
And we can get them to you if you want to.
Okay. That would be helpful. Yeah.
The next step, I think, is going to require THS to come up with. See, it's a weird situation because we can't initiate additional revenue sources outside the fare box. We as HART, okay. Only THS can negotiate with. I think the THS agreement with the city requires the city to step up, and then they'll look for the alternate or additional revenue sources to cover the potential shortfall. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
No, you're correct.
Because we have a THS meeting on next Tuesday to discuss the options that are presented here. I I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what we can do at this point other than to say, hey, guys, this is where we are. We're already 2 months, we're well into the second month of the operating year. We got to do something with this sooner rather than later, or it'll present issues for the streetcar system before we get to the end of the year. I mean, we're paying the bills. I mean, it's not like it's not getting covered, but it's taking away from other resources within HART in order to cover these things, and we need them we need the dollars in other places to maintain our level of service and get to the goals that HART's trying to accomplish pre-COVID and pre-Mission Max, somewhere down the future. Any other comments or questions, suggestions, how we want to proceed?
And again, if I may, I am meeting with President English this week to discuss any progress on the THS. We do have the THS scheduled for next week, and we're still in contact with the city on discussions and if they can. So there's multiple conversations going on, and like you said, you stated if they do come up with the money, it's all a moot point. I want to make sure that the committee and the board we're fully transparent and they know every step where we are with the streetcar. And if the board decides to, if there is a shortfall and the board decides to cover the cost, that would be up to the board to decide, so.
Right. So the action item out of our committee then is to, recommend to the THS to continue negotiations with the city /HART, and then the full board to pursue the same route, if you will?
Yeah, so hopefully we have more information by the next board meeting and we could provide more information. And then it would be a discussion again at the board meeting with the full board of directors on the future of how we're going to fund the shortfall. So.
I'm not sure what the action item would look like for today, what kind of motion we could make. That's where I'm kind of blindly bumping into the wall.
So I believe really direct my team to come up with some service scenarios that include implementing a fare. Because if that is going to take place, it would be on January 5th of next year. So we would need action at the December board. So I think it's not necessarily an action item, but to form a recommendation to instruct staff to further develop those scenarios.
I'm good with that. I think that's an appropriate action for this committee to take. Let's take a motion. Let's get a motion to that effect to instruct staff to continue working to the options that need to be done in order to cover the shortfall, if you will, even if it's fare increases or service reductions in the streetcar. If nothing else, it'll force everybody else to take a stand and to do something. I'll take a motion to that effect.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Can we have a roll call vote on that, please, Ms. Danielle?
Committee Member Hartfield,
Yes.
Committee Member King,
Yes.
Committee Member Knight, Committee Chair Schisler.
Yes.
Committee Member Williams.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Okay, and this hopefully it'll give guidance to everybody all up and down the chain of command to, time is moving forward. We got to do something with this sooner than later. Okay, cool. Procurement monitoring, Mr. Drainville, you're recognized for your updates on the procurement monitoring reports.
Chair. So starting off with sole source procurement, we have 5 added to the sole source report. The first is Conduit Transport Solutions Incorporated in the amount of $21,675. Conduit Transport Solutions is exclusive CAD AVL solution provider for our fixed route and paratransit. Conduit is the only supplier of the Orb Guide mobile data terminals, or MDTs, fully compatible with our existing Conduit CAD AVL system. The Orb Guide MDT are essential interface terminals that enable operators to communicate effectively with dispatchers and operations control. The refurbished units will reduce hardware failures, leading to communication breakdowns. The second is Power and System Innovation in the amount of $19,558. The Power and Systems Innovations is the sole provider of the UPS and/or PDU Advantage Ultra Service. Power and Systems Innovations will dispatch certified personnel to provide repairs in the event of a problem. Parts, labor, travel, and priority access to spare parts are included. The Advantage Ultra Service from Power and Systems Innovations standard response time is next business day. The third one is the Level 3 Communications in the amount of $98,668. HART selected Level 3 Communications to provide telecommunications services through the competitive solicitation process in 2008. The current renewal includes an upgrade in the current equipment installed by Level 3, which result in a 44% cost savings to HART in FY25. Environmental Products Groups Incorporated in the amount of $10,294. Repairs are needed to the Elgin Broom Bear Sweeper purchased in 2021. Following extensive research, it was confirmed that no other vendors are authorized or capable of providing the required repair services. Only Environmental Products Group is authorized and capable to make the repairs on this piece of equipment. Then Trapeze Software Group Incorporated in the amount of $529,997 for the annual maintenance renewal. Trapeze software applications provide fixed route, flex, and paratransit scheduling, run cutting, dispatch, bid software. The maintenance provides access to customer care 24/7 and access to updates and bug fixes to ensure system performance. Fiscal year to date, sole source procurements totaled $680,192. Moving on to task orders, there were no task orders to be reported in FY25. And then moving on to notice of solicitations, there's been one solicitation reported for this month for a chiller replacement at the HART's operations facility located at 4305 East 21st Avenue. The solicitation will result in a contractor to supply labor, material, and equipment to remove properly dispose, and to replace the existing McQuay chiller. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments by committee members for Mr. Drainville? Appearing to be none, this concludes regular business of the meeting. Is there any old business to be brought up? I do have one. Ms. Kirk, good morning. Can you give us an update on the audit issues from last year, where we stand?
Well, good morning again. And we had one outstanding audit issue, and I believe it's going to be resolved this week, and that is the dissolution of the 401A plan. I understand that the plan provider is supposed to send the checks to the participants on the 20th of this month, and in turn, HART will pay, as instructed by the board, what we feel is the tax consequences of that being recognized as ordinary income. So we plan to send those checks to the participants as soon as we receive the legal releases. So hopefully that will be completed this week.
Cool. Training issues are all addressed and taken care of, and staffing? Excellent.
The staffing issues were addressed, the training issues were addressed. Of course, in terms of staffing, you'll always have some vacancies, but those major vacancies were filled. The vacancies that we have now are just ongoing vacancies, and as soon as we have a vacancy, then HR is very responsive, and we get right on the replacement.
Very good. Thank you very much for the update and the rapidity with which you got these fulfilled and addressed this year. Thank you. Okay, any other old business?
Thank you.
Any new business? I want to wish everybody a good, safe, happy Thanksgiving without having to travel too far. And this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Does that give you enough?